Could the Celtics sign DeMar DeRozan to the 15th and final roster spot? Bleach Report seem to think so. They recently put Boston as the number one landing spot for DeRozan during free agency. So we're going to talk about it. Welcome back to another episode of the Celtics Chronicle with me, your boy, Adam Taylor. As usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Mike Weather. What's popping, Mike?
What's up, Adam? How we doing, bro?
I'm living, man. I'm living. Dylan Mitchell stuff's throwing me through a loop. We covered it a little bit yesterday, myself and Tim. There's going to be more coming out. I don't want to kind of waste any time on that today. And I know it's not, but right now it's all ifs, buts, and maybes. So just
Speculative, yeah.
So I kind of want to focus on this. We're probably about a week and a half late to this as well, but it's the off season. So, recently, I'll say recently, a week and a half ago, maybe a bit longer, Bleacher Report put out DeMar DeRozan as being somebody where Boston could potentially pick him up on a veteran minimum. Obviously, he's got interest from the Miami Heat and a few other teams around the NBA. I see the vision in terms of tertiary playmaking. He can get buckets. He fills some of that mid-range void that has been left behind by by trading Jaylen Brown, and they're coming on a vet minimum. You could do a lot worse as a vet minimum addition than DeMar DeRozan. You really genuinely could. I'm not sold on it though. I feel like part of the reason Jaylen Brown was traded outside of his contract and the impending extension, and then whatever other reasons you want to throw in there, was because, and I keep going back to this report just after he was traded from the Athletic, where he went off script quite a bit. And I think that off script was taking so many attempts in the mid range, or at least a portion of being off script was the amount of mid range he took. So then bringing in a guy that lives almost exclusively there, that doesn't make a ton of sense for me personally.
Yeah, I have to say, the version I recall that makes me appeal to this is his stint that he had with the Spurs. He had that stint with the Spurs when they were kind of, they weren't there yet. This is not the Wemby dominant championship level Spurs. But he had that pocket of time we played with the Spurs post Raptors where I was like, I kind of like this version of him. He seems like he's a leader in the team. He's doing okay. He's efficient. He still wasn't shooting 3-pointers. He still was taking a lot of mid range. And I would never coin him as an elite defender either. I'm not going to lie, in the spirit of transparency, I'm not a huge DeMar DeRozan fan. I do respect a lot of the work he's done as a advocate for mental health and stuff like that. He's definitely somebody who the locker rooms respect in the NBA. He's a voice that's been heard. In that regard, I think the world of him. But as far as a fit, and I know I'm not going to dive into, I think my feelings about Dylan Mitchell with our crew and anybody who's ever listened to me talk about are on record. So I'm in denial currently, hoping that there's no possibility for DeMar DeRozan to come to the Celtics, possibly because they want to keep some of the younger guys. But having said that, I'm not in love with the idea, Adam. I think if it depends on his priority. Is he happy being playing 60 games and being a leader off on the bench and getting some shots up here and there, kind of like Anthony Simons had to adjust when he came in? I do like the idea of him filling, like Mike Conley's coming in and filling a little bit of that veteran vibe with Paul George. But my thing is, what's the role? Is his priority getting buckets up like it has been the last few years? Then he's probably heading to the Heat, right? But if it's about championship and culture and fit, I mean vibes. I don't mean like shooting wise, because the mid range thing is not necessarily Joe's bag. To me, I'm not a huge fan of this, but I could be sold on it.
I think one of the first things I've looked at, and I've got the numbers in front of me right now, is DeMar DeRozan has not been a bench player since pretty much his entire time in the NBA. In his rookie season, he started 65 of his 77 games. Since then, he's been a starter in pretty much almost exclusively for every season he's played since. Even this past year at 36, he started all 77 games he suited up for Sacramento. The year before that, in Sac, started all 77 of the 77 he played. So I think some of this would come down to, are you willing to take a bench role? You've been a starter in the NBA for 17 years. You're coming into your age 37 season. If you still feel like you can be a starter, Miami is the place for you right now. Now, I don't think the fit for DeMar DeRozan with Miami is very good anyway. That's a story for them to deal with, the people that cover the Heat. Personally, I think that they need shooters around Giannis. The last thing you want to do is add another interior to mid-level scorer around a guy that needs the spacing to get downhill. Cool. That's for them. I think in Boston, the spacing is there for somebody like DeRozan to thrive, but I do question whether he'd be willing to accept that bench role. If you started in the NBA for all but, okay, look at it this way. He's played in 1,264 regular season games. He started 1,252.
Yeah, shout out to him, by the way, for being incredibly
That's
durable.
like, yeah,
Super
dude.
durable. Like,
And
gotta
like,
give
having a
props to that.
17-year NBA career is incredible. It's so rare. But my point being is, are you willing to accept that bench role? If the answer is yes, then maybe there's a world where this could work, because he definitely does give you some other stuff outside of the scoring, right? He's a solid playmaker. He can play make really well. Rebounding is not really going to be there, but you've got your bigs, you've got Jason Tatum, you're fine. Do I think it's a great fit? Not necessarily. I think it's a counterproductive fit for the way the Celtics are trying to play, especially with their possession maxing. But having a wrinkle that can go and attack in a different way to everybody else on the roster is always valuable, because sometimes teams are going to take away the 3-point shot. Sometimes it's just not going to be there. And I trust DeMar DeRozan to create a shot for himself as a self-creator in the mid-range more than I trust someone like Sam Hauser to go and do that. So there is a world where I think this could work as a 15th man on a vet minimum. Again, though, if opportunities are elsewhere where you can continue to be a starter in the league now, and it's not like the Celtics have an opportunity to be like, hey, you can come and contend for a ring with us, because I just don't think they're there this season. It does become a bit more of a question.
Yeah, it's staggering what you just said. He's only not started 12 games his whole career and averaged 34.5 minutes for his career. He's never averaged less than 30 minutes a game other than his rookie year. So and look, the dude's a professional foul baiter, by the way. I'm not trying to say,
yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, and not a slanderous term. I envy that. Like, I'm watching our team and I'm like, man, it would be really great if, I don't know, Tatum could get that whistle, but he doesn't. But that's a whole different conversation. But I don't know that if I'm him, even at the age of 36, after averaging 32 minutes a game and starting 99.9% of my career, I don't know that he's at that point. DeMar, if I'm wrong, you have my permission to tell me that. And Brad, kudos to you if you can convince him. I guess there's also a sales pitch of, hey, we are going to have some load management going on with Paul and Tatum. So there is going to be a void to fill. But I mean, if we were to sit here and power rank all our wings and shooters and where we want to see and how they're going to play, do I want to see Hugo play less? Do I want to see Ron Harper Jr. not play at all after making a commitment to him? Do I want to see Jordan Walsh not get in there? Hell no.
And this is a bigger part of the issue for me, right? It's, yes, what you bring can be valuable to the way this team play, but every minute you play is a minute of developmental time somebody else is giving up. And I think that's a huge part of this whole story, right? And I want to touch on Bradley Beal in this episode too, and the Bradley Beal free agency, and we'll get there. But part of me feels like this is why, if you were going to go for one of these two veterans, Bradley Beal could potentially be someone that makes more sense, because he can slide down into a guard role, whereas DeRozan really cannot do that, and you don't want him to. And I think that when I'm looking at this, I want Hugo to play as many minutes as physically possible. I want him to be force-fed some pick-and-roll actions. I want him to be force-fed moments where he needs to create for himself. And I want him to be put in situations where it's hella uncomfortable. Jordan Walsh has said multiple times now, including the interview he had with Chris Forsberg over on NBC Boston recently. I think that was yesterday that came out. And you'll be watching this on Wednesday, so it was Monday when that came out. Is, he's been working on being better in the areas where the Celtics often took him off the floor. He's like, oh, well, you took me off the floor in situations like this. Let me improve there. So now I'm an option for you in those situations. To then be like, oh, well, all that work you put in that contract extension, that's great, but you're going to ride the bench because we just added DeRozan. It doesn't fit. The Celtics are getting younger. They're getting more athletic. Sans Paul George, obviously. But DeRozan doesn't fit that. So that, I think you really hit on a really good point there. And it was a point we were definitely going to circle to, but I'm glad that you got it in early. I would much rather just lean on the young wings. I think the wing spot is the most loaded on the team. Adding another one makes very limited sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, and we didn't even mention Baylor Scheierman, who I think is
boy Baylor, dude.
That's my guy. I mean, and like you said about Walsh, by the way, I'd like to give him credit. That was, I think we talked about that during the Summer League game recap at one point, that Walsh, even before Forsberg's article, that Walsh said, like, hey, kind of like with Senak saying, they told me, find out why I was drafted 27th and work on that. kind of like, I love that messaging from the Celtics. It's like, hey, Walsh, we're going to give you an extension, but bro, you got work to do. Hey, Harper, we loved what you did last year, but there's still more growth. And we didn't even mention Baylor, who I think maybe is positioned of all the guys to make the biggest jump offensively next year as far as stats and putting up numbers. So
Yeah,
I'm
well, he's
out
coming
on
into
it,
his third year. Baylor is, and
yeah.
players generally take their biggest leap in their third year,
Right.
as long as they've had the playing time to do so. So I'm expecting a big year from Scheierman. I think that he's going to give you a lot of the tertiary creation that we're talking about off the bench that would have potentially gone to DeMar DeRozan. I'm a big Baylor Scheierman guy just because of the versatility in his game. I think
And
he
a
really
defense,
showed.
bro.
I was
Yeah.
literally getting there. Literally showed some incredible defense last season. So yeah, for those reasons, for me, while I don't see the Celtics as a landing spot for DeMar DeRozan. I understand why some might, and I understand the allure of adding a guy who's obviously a big name within the league, but that's just not where the Celtics are right now. And for me, I'd much rather the young guys, and I'd rather potentially keep that roster spot open for flexibility.
But if we're going to talk about a vet who I think is now positioned to take a look and be like, okay, like, I'm not that guy anymore, it's got to be Beal, right?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Beal, yeah. I mean, I think back to the team. I always think of the Olynyk game, the Kelly Olynyk Washington Wizards game. I always think of that series, and that was a fun run, right? But I think back to those teams when him and John Wall were together, and I always felt, and this is just observationally, there could be analytics that prove me wrong. I always felt that team, that Wizards team, played better when Brad was the facilitator and Wall played more off guard. To me, that's just I think Brad is an underrated playmaker for others. I just think he's got that skill, and I think kind of like Mike Conley vibes, like where it's like, okay, and obviously we can't discredit the obvious connection. I think the dude babysat Jason Tatum. So, but I think and sorry if that's not true, but I'm pretty sure that was they're tight.
They were friends,
So, I mean,
yeah. Like Bradley Beal was
super
picking
tight.
Tatum up when Tatum was in high school and taking him to play ball, and like I don't
He's
think he
his
babysat
mentor.
him, but they were like,
that's what I mean. Like they're tight, bro.
Yeah, he was. There's been stories that I've read and I've watched podcasts and I've listened to like podcasts, and Tatum's like, dude, he used to come and pick me up at my house and take me and train me. Even when he was in the NBA, he was still turning up. So I think that from a friendship standpoint, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Let's add the second best player ever from St. Louis.
I think you might as well just make Nelly the arena announcer for the year at this point.
Yeah.
What I will say is Bill has also rarely came off the bench. 807 career games, 758 as a starter. So again, it's barely any. Obviously, you have the injury concerns with Bill. I do think that you can make room within that guard rotation a lot easier than you can within the wing, like the forward rotation. You can put Beal at the 2 and you can play him as an off guard. He can create, he can score from all 3 levels, fits the 3-point catch and shoot game you'd want, gives you a little bit of a guy that can scale his usage, can work as a low usage guy, can work as a high usage guy. He's used to playing next to ball dominant dudes. I mean, he spent multiple years next to John Wall. I think in terms of fit, and if you're balancing this as Beal versus DeRozan, Beal's a way better fit for Boston, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do I think he's a guy the Celtics should go after? I'm torn. I think that, again, there's enough young talent on this team that you don't really need it. I do feel, though, that having another guard that can handle the rock, that can run some offense for you, that can come off the bench, ease a little bit of pressure on that guard rotation and just give you some more depth. I think that's key right now. I still feel like if you look at the guard rotation, it's Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Mike Conley Jr. You can argue that Scheierman can play there too. Cool, I'm there. I know some
Tatum
people
obviously compensates a lot for
Tatum
guards,
gives you that point forward. I know people are saying that Ugo can give you some minutes as a primary ball handler too. But just having the depth there and the experience that if you are in a game that's important and you need a win, if maybe you're overachieving throughout the season and it's going to be a tight Eastern Conference, so down the stretch, maybe there's 2 games that splits you from a home court advantage and not. Having someone like Bradley Beal to lean on that's been there and done that gives you a little bit more of an advantage as to say if you had to lean on Ugo in his second year in the league. So I can see the value there. Now, this isn't me saying they should go and sign him. I'd be far less upset if it was Brad Beal than if it was DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, if you're Brad Beal and winning is your priority, the team with arguably the most consistent floor making the playoffs has been the Celtics, right? I mean, how many consecutive years they made the playoffs? And he seems to be chasing that post Wizards, right? On the Suns, on the Clippers, and obviously broke his hip last year. God bless him for that. That's terrible. But I don't know. I'm a soft pass on Brad if I have any say, which I don't. But I'm a soft pass on that. I would rather see. I like the Celtics death match strategy of like, okay, they were leaving the spot open. Let's see who earns it. Whether that's Milo Uzan or Milos Uzan or
I think those guys are
whatever.
all going on two ways. I think Uzan
Yeah.
goes on a two way. I think if Dylan Mitchell stays, he goes on a two way. But I get
Yeah.
what you're saying. I
Yeah.
think the flexibility of having that 15th spot open is the most important thing right now. What I will say as well is none of us know what Brad Beal looks like post hip injury. And we've seen what a hip injury can do to guys. If you just look back to how Isaiah Thomas came back off that. And now obviously the situations were different. Thomas played hurt and he played through that pain barrier. And that obviously, probably, most likely, potentially, any other words you want to throw in there, had an impact on the way he was after the recovery. Beal didn't play hurt, so maybe it's different there. Sports medicine's obviously progressed in that time too. I know it wasn't that long ago, but the way the world's moving at the minute, things are going out of date every 6 days. So I do think that not knowing what he looks like in terms of as an on-court contributor is again another thing, right? I think that's an important distinction there. But you are right. I like the idea of keeping that 15th spot open, not only because, as you put it, the death match, but also because, we can sign somebody at any given time. There's always room for us to add right now. We don't have much money, but, if we want to stay under the tax, but there's always room for us to add.
And look, recent precedence shows you the development system works. Having the carrot to dangle works. And I like to see that premise of, hey, dude, if you dominate in Maine and you buy into our system, you're going to make an NBA roster.
Yeah, I mean, they've done it multiple years in a row now. Now, just because you sign with the Celtics late in the season from Maine doesn't mean you're going to guarantee to stay there. Look at Amari Williams, signed with the Celtics late in the season, then he's back on a two-way. Cool. I think that's fine too, because you're still getting a taste of what that negotiation period of time is like and what it's like to sign an NBA contract, what it means to be part of a team that's competing, the way the practices look, the way the film the way the film studies look. There's value in all of it. And the fact that so many members of this roster continue to come from the G League through that pipeline, keeping it open, does give the younger guys a reason to keep pushing and keep working hard, because it's proven that Boston will reward you if you're ready. So that's part of the value too, that you would be taken away from these young dudes if you signed a DeRozan or a Beal.
And big shout out to Brad. Hope you're feeling better. Hope the hip's good, man. We obviously send you all the best vibes, but I'm in on the investment and development part for sure.
With that, this one's a bit of a shorter episode today, just because I wanted to touch on this very specific discussion topic, because I feel like this finally wraps up the free agency talk and we can start looking forward towards proper off-season talk at this point. Again, we're a little bit late on this one, but it's the off-season, so there's never any rush. Again, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the Celtics Chronicle YouTube channel, to the podcast feeds, and to the newsletter. And then if you're in and around the Boston area and you're looking for a band for any of your events, Mike has got you covered. What's the band called, Mike?
After School Special. Bunch of teachers, man. We're in a great band. You can see us at Bally's, Mohegan Sun, you name it, all the cool spots. Check it out.
Until next time, y'all. Peace.